The dirt was still fresh on my son's grave when she handed me the envelope. Michael wanted me to have peace, she said. 2 days later, I stood on the porch with my boxes, while she changed the locks. My own daughter-in-law locking me out of the home I'd built with my son. I thought that was the end of my story. But I was wrong. It was only the beginning. I stood at my son's graveside, staring at the polished mahogany casket being lowered into the earth. Michael was only 32. A heart condition no one knew existed. Until it was too late. The morning sun felt wrong, too bright for a day like this. People whispered condolences I barely heard. Then Tara appeared beside me, dressed in elegant black, her face composed and dry. She leaned close and pressed a cream envelope into my trembling hands. "Michael's will has been updated," she whispered. "Everything's handled." I looked down at the envelope, confused. Around us, mourners shifted uncomfortably. I didn't open it then. I should have. Later, sitting alone in my car, I finally to read it open. The words blurred. "All assets, including the family home and savings, are hereby transferred to Tara Briggs." My breath caught. The house I'd raised Michael in. The savings I'd helped him build. Gone. All of it. I read it twice, then 3 times, hoping I'd misunderstood. But the ink didn't change. Tara had taken everything. 2 days after the funeral, I returned home from the grocery store to find my key wouldn't turn. I jiggled it, confused, then noticed the lock was different, shiny, new. Panic fluttered in my chest. I knocked. Tara opened the door, her expression cold and blank. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I live here," I said, voice shaking. She tilted her head. "Not anymore. Michael wanted me to have peace. This is my house now." Behind her, I saw boxes, my belongings, stacked haphazardly. She pointed to the porch. "Everything's there. You have an hour before I call the police." I stared at her, speechless. This was the woman Michael had loved, the woman I'd welcomed into our family. Now she stood in my doorway. Like a stranger guarding stolen property. Neighbors peeked through curtains as I loaded boxes into my car, humiliation burning my cheeks. Tara watched from the window, arms crossed. I drove away, hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. The Sunset Motel smelled like stale cigarettes and regret. I paid for a week with what little cash I had left, then sat on the sagging mattress, staring at the peeling wallpaper. My entire life fit into 4 cardboard boxes. Photographs. Clothes. A few kitchen items Tara deemed unworthy of keeping. I pulled out a framed picture of Michael as a boy, grinning gap-toothed at the camera. Tears finally came, hot and relentless. How had this happened? I replayed every interaction with Tara over the past year. The way she'd always steered conversations away when Michael talked about future plans. How she'd insisted on managing his finances to reduce his stress. The times she'd smiled sweetly while subtly excluding me from family decisions. It all made sense now. She'd planned this. Every move calculated, every word chosen. While I'd been grieving my son, she'd been erasing me from his life. And I'd been too blind to see it coming. I found Michael's old lawyer, Howard Banks, in a dusty office downtown. He looked up from his desk, sympathy flickering across his weathered face. "Mrs. Briggs," he said quietly. "I heard about Michael. I'm so sorry." I slid the will across his desk. "Is this real? Can she really do this?" He read it slowly, then sighed, a sound heavy with bad news. "Tara came here 3 weeks before Michael passed. She had documents, signatures, everything notarized. Legally, it's airtight. But Michael wouldn't." I advised against it, he interrupted gently. But he was insistent. Or at least, that's what the paperwork shows. I felt my stomach drop. You think she forged it? He hesitated. I think proving that would be nearly impossible. Without witnesses or evidence. I am sorry, Eleanor. She covered every angle. I left his office. In a daze. The betrayal wasn't just losing my home, it was losing the truth of who my son was. Tara had rewritten his final wishes, and I couldn't prove otherwise. Broke and desperate, I walked into Patty's bakery with a handwritten resume. The owner, a round woman with flour-dusted hands and kind eyes, looked me over. You ever worked in a kitchen? She asked. I raised a son and cooked every meal for 30 years, I replied. She smiled. Good enough. You start tomorrow. Dishwashing, $6 an hour. It wasn't much, but it was something. I spent my first day elbow deep in soapy water, scrubbing, baking sheets until my hands pruned. The work was hard and humbling. I'd once managed a household, volunteered at the library, hosted dinner parties. Now I wore rubber gloves and cleared other people's messes. But Patty treated me with respect. She didn't ask about my past or why a woman my age needed this job. She just handed me a plate of fresh cookies at the end of my shift and said, "You did good today." For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt useful. Word spread fast in a small town. Customers whispered when I walked past, their voices dropping to that particular pitch reserved for tragedy and scandal. Poor Eleanor Briggs, they'd say. Lost her son and her home. Meanwhile, Tara strutted through town in designer clothes, her social media flooded with photos of expensive dinners and luxury purchases. She was opening a boutique maison ta high-end clothing store downtown. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of what she'd stolen. The money Michael had saved. The inheritance I'd planned to leave him. All of it funding Tara's new life while I scrubbed dishes for minimum wage. I watched from the bakery window as she passed by one afternoon, laughing into her phone. She didn't even glance in my direction. To her, I'd already ceased to exist. But I was still here, still breathing, still rebuilding. She'd taken my home, but she hadn't taken everything. Not yet. I saw her at the grocery store on a Saturday afternoon. I was comparing prices on generic bread when Tara glided past with a cart full of expensive items: imported wine, organic produce, gourmet cheeses. Our eyes met for a split second. I waited for acknowledgement. Maybe even guilt. Instead, she looked right through me, grabbed a bottle of expensive red wine, and tossed it carelessly into her cart. Then she paused, turned back, and smiled. You really should move on, Eleanor, she said, loud enough for nearby shoppers to hear. Michael did. My hand trembled on the shopping cart handle. 1,000 responses burned in my throat, but nothing came out. She walked away, heels clicking on the tile floor, leaving me standing there with my budget bread and wounded pride. I finished shopping in silence, paid with careful precision, and drove back to my motel room. That night, I lay awake replaying her words, letting them fuel something deeper than anger determination. While cleaning the bakery storage shelves one afternoon, I found an old notebook wedged behind some flour bags. I recognized it immediately: my mother's handwriting, faded but still legible. I'd given it to Patty years ago when I'd helped her organize the kitchen. Inside were my mother's recipes, the ones she'd perfected over decades. Honey oat bread, cinnamon apple preserves, herb-crusted dinner rolls. Each page held memory: Sunday mornings, holiday dinners, the smell of rising dough filling our kitchen. I sat on an overturned crate, running my fingers over her handwriting. My mother had taught me that food was more than sustenance, it was love made tangible. I'd forgotten that lesson somewhere along the way. But holding this notebook, I felt something stir inside me, a spark of the woman I used to be. Maybe even the woman I could become again. I tucked the notebook into my apron and got back to work, but my mind was already turning with possibilities. I asked Patty if I could use the kitchen after hours. "What for?" she asked, curious but not suspicious. "I want to try baking something," I said. "My mother's recipe." She handed me the keys without hesitation. That night, I mixed dough for the first time in years, measuring flour and honey with careful precision. The smell of baking bread filled the kitchen, warm and comforting. When the loaves came out golden brown and perfect, I nearly cried. The next morning, Patty tried a slice. Her eyes widened. "Eleanor, this is incredible. Can you make more?" I made 3 loaves. She put them out with a small handwritten sign. "Homemade honey oat bread." They sold out by noon. Customers asked about them all week. By Friday, Patty suggested I make a dozen. I worked late every night, my hands remembering the rhythm my mother had taught me. The bread sold faster than we could stock it. People weren't just buying bread, they were buying something real, something made with care. And for the first time since Michael's funeral, I felt like I had purpose again. Word spread beyond the bakery. The local cafe called, asking if I could supply them with a dozen loaves weekly. Then the organic market downtown wanted to carry my bread. I could barely keep up. Patty encouraged me to make it official. "You need a brand, Eleanor. A real one." I thought about it for days, then chose a name that felt right: Sunrise Organics. It represented new beginnings, hope after darkness. I registered the business with shaking hands, filling out paperwork in my cramped motel room. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Nobody could take it from me. By the end of the month, I was baking 40 loaves a week, delivering them myself in my aging sedan. The small checks added up. I moved from the motel into a tiny studio apartment, nothing fancy, but it had a real bed and a kitchen where I could test new recipes. I was still broke, still rebuilding, but I wasn't drowning anymore. I was swimming, slowly but steadily, towards something better. A regional grocery chain contacted me out of nowhere. Their buyer had tasted my bread at the cafe and wanted to meet. I dressed in my best outfit, a thrift store blouse and pressed pants, and drove to their headquarters, heart pounding. The buyer, a no-nonsense woman named Claire, got straight to business. "We're looking for authentic local products. Your bread fits. Can you scale up production?" I hesitated. Could I? "Yes," I heard myself say. "Good. We'll start with 20 stores. 50 loaves per store weekly." The numbers made my head spin, but I nodded. She slid a contract across the table. I read every line twice, then signed with trembling hands. Walking out of that building, I felt 10 feet tall. This was my first real step toward independence. That evening, I called Patty with the news. She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Eleanor, you did it." I had. Against everything stacked against me, I'd built something from nothing. And I was just getting started. While I built my small business, Tara's empire exploded online. Maison T's grand opening made the local news. She gave interviews about carrying on Michael's vision, claiming he'd always wanted her to pursue her dreams. I watched one interview from my apartment, anger simmering. She wore a dress that cost more than I made in a month, speaking eloquently about ambition and legacy. The reporter ate it up. "Your late husband must have been so proud," they said. Tara smiled, dabbing fake tears. "He believed in me. This is for him." I turned off the television, disgusted. Michael had never mentioned any boutique plans. That was Tara's dream, funded by his death. But I couldn't focus on her lies. I had orders to fill, deliveries to make, a business to grow. Let Tara have her spotlight. I had something more valuable: honest work and honest growth. Still, seeing her thrive on stolen money burned. I promised myself I wouldn't let that anger consume me. Revenge would come, but not through hatred. Through success. An older woman named Dorothy came into the bakery one afternoon. She ordered coffee and sat quietly in the corner. Before leaving, she approached me. "You're Eleanor Briggs, aren't you?" I nodded cautiously. "I used to work for Tara," she said quietly. "As her accountant. I quit last month." My pulse quickened. "Why?" Dorothy glanced around, then leaned closer. "Because her books are a disaster. Suppliers aren't getting paid. She's juggling credit lines she can't afford. The boutique looks successful, but it's hemorrhaging money." I absorbed this information carefully. "Why are you telling me?" "Because I know what she did to you," Dorothy said. "And because someone should know the truth before it all collapses." She handed me her card, then left. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't plan to use the information, not yet. But knowing Tara's glittering empire was built on sand brought a cold satisfaction. Eventually, gravity would do its work. I just had to wait. I expanded Sunrise Organics slowly and carefully. Honey oat bread was just the beginning. I added granola made with local oats and honey, homemade jams bursting with real fruit, herb-infused dinner rolls. I called it my breakfast revival line, and stores couldn't keep it stocked. Customers left reviews praising the authenticity, how it reminded them of their grandmother's cooking, how it felt wholesome and real in a world of processed food. I hired 2 part-time helpers, both older women like me who needed second chances. We worked in a small rented kitchen space, laughing and baking side by side. For the first time since Michael's death, I felt something close to happiness. I wasn't rich, but I was stable. I had purpose. I had people depending on me. And I had proof that starting over, even in your 60s, was possible. Tara had tried to erase me, but here I stood building something real. While her empire crumbled in expensive shadows. The Regional Food Expo was my first big public appearance. I set up a modest booth. Samples, pricing sheets, business cards. Other vendors had flashy displays, but mine was simple and honest. That's when I saw her. Tara walked past, dressed impeccably, laughing with someone on her phone. Then our eyes met. She froze mid-step, surprise flashing across her perfect face. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she approached slowly, her smile turning sharp. "Eleanor," she said, looking at my display. "I didn't expect to see you here. Selling crumbs now?" I met her gaze calmly. "Everyone starts somewhere." She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Well, good luck with your little hobby." She walked away, but I noticed her glance back twice. That brief encounter told me everything. She'd assumed I'd disappeared, broken and defeated. Instead, I was here visible, working, succeeding. That small moment was worth more than any confrontation. I'd proven I was still standing. And that terrified her more than any words I could have said. A week after the expo, I received an unexpected call. A woman named Victoria introduced herself as a small business investor. She'd tried my products and researched my story. "I'm impressed by your resilience," she said. "I'd like to discuss funding to help you scale up." We met at a coffee shop. Victoria was younger than me, sharp-eyed and direct. She outlined a plan: a small factory space, professional packaging, distribution expansion. The numbers made my head spin. "I don't know if I can handle this," I admitted. "That's why you'd have support," she replied. "You've proven you can build something real. Now let's make it bigger." I went home and thought about it for 3 days. Fear whispered that I'd fail, that I was too old, too inexperienced. But another voice, my mother's, maybe reminded me that I'd already survived the worst. What was risk compared to that? I called Victoria and accepted. Within a month, Sunrise Organics moved into a small factory space downtown. Then the news broke: Maison T faces lawsuit for fraudulent accounting. Tara's world was beginning to crack. Tara's boutique closed within weeks. Investors pulled out. Creditors circled. Her social media went dark. The local paper ran a story about unpaid suppliers and questionable business practices. I read it without satisfaction, just quiet acknowledgement that Dorothy had been right. Tara's empire, built on stolen money and lies, couldn't sustain itself. Meanwhile, Sunrise Organics grew steadily. We hired 4 more people. Orders doubled. I was featured in a small business magazine as an example of resilience and reinvention. The article mentioned my late son and the challenges I'd faced, though it didn't name Tara. I didn't need to. People in town connected the dots. They stopped whispering pity and started offering respect. I'd proven that honest work outlasted flashy deception every time. Still, I wondered about Tara. Where was she? What happened when everything you stole crumbled in your hands? I'd get my answer sooner than expected. Late one evening, as I locked up the factory, someone knocked on the door. I turned, annoyed, ready to say we were closed. Then I saw her. Tara stood in the dim parking lot light, looking nothing like the polished woman from the expo. Her hair hung limp. Her clothes were wrinkled. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She looked defeated. "Eleanor," she whispered. "Please. I just need work. Anything." I stared at her, speechless. The woman who'd stolen my home, who'd locked me out and mocked me at the grocery store, was now begging for my help. Viewers of my life would have gasped at this moment. The karmic circle had completed itself perfectly. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. "Come back tomorrow at 8, I said quietly. "We'll talk." She nodded, relief flooding her face, and disappeared into the darkness. I drove home in silence, mind racing. What was I supposed to do with this? The next morning, Tara arrived exactly at 8, wearing the same wrinkled clothes. I led her to my small office and sat across from her, the desk between us like a barrier. "Tell me why you're here," I said. She swallowed hard. "I lost everything. The boutique, my apartment, my savings. Nobody will hire me after the lawsuit. I heard you were doing well, and I thought." She trailed off. "You thought I'd help you?" She looked down. "I know I don't deserve it." "You're right. You don't." Silence stretched between us. Then I said, "But I'm not going to turn you away." Her head snapped up, hope and confusion mixing on her face. "I don't understand." "Neither do I admitted. "But I've learned that holding on to anger only hurts me. So here's what's going to happen. You'll start in packaging. Minimum wage. Same as I did at Patty's Bakery. You'll work hard, follow rules, and treat everyone with respect. If you can't do that, you're gone. Understood?" She nodded frantically, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," I said. "You haven't started working." Tara's first week was brutal to watch. She struggled with the physical labor lifting boxes, standing for hours, following the fast pace. My other employees knew who she was. They weren't cruel, but they weren't friendly either. She'd earned their coldness. I watched her carefully, waiting for her to quit or complain. But she didn't. She showed up early every day, worked through lunch, stayed late to finish tasks. Her hands blistered from packaging. Her feet ached from the concrete floors. But she never asked for special treatment. Slowly, grudgingly, I started to see glimpses of something I hadn't expected: genuine effort. Maybe even humility. One afternoon, I found her crying in the bathroom. "This is harder than I thought," she admitted. "Good," I said. "Now you understand what building something actually takes." She wiped her eyes and went back to work. I returned to my office, unsure. What to feel? Was I helping her, or punishing her? Maybe both. Maybe that was the point. 3 months passed. Tara proved herself through consistency and quiet determination. She arrived early, worked hard, and slowly began earning small nods of respect from the team. One of my employees, a grandmother named Beatrice, even started including Tara in lunch conversations. I didn't interfere. If Tara was going to change, it had to be real, not forced. Then one afternoon, I collapsed. I'd been pushing 2 hard-working 70-hour weeks. Skipping meals, ignoring exhaustion. My vision blurred while checking inventory, and I crumpled to the floor. I woke in the hospital with monitors beeping. Tara sat in the corner chair, looking exhausted herself. "What are you doing here?" I croaked. "Beatrice called me," she said quietly. "I've been here since they brought you in." "Why?" "Because you gave me a chance when I deserved nothing." And because she hesitated. "Because I owe you more than I could ever repay." For the first time, I saw genuine concern in her eyes, not manipulation, not performance. Just human worry for another human. Something shifted in that hospital room, small but undeniable. The doctor ordered me to rest for 2 weeks. I hated it, but my body left no choice. Tara visited every day after work, bringing updates and sometimes food. We didn't talk much at first, just business updates and logistics. But one evening, as I picked at hospital jello, she spoke quietly. "I need to tell you something. The truth." I looked at her, waiting. "Michael didn't update that will," she confessed, voice breaking. "I did. He was so sick near the end, heavily medicated. I convinced him to sign papers, told him it was insurance paperwork. He trusted me, and I betrayed him." Tears streamed down her face. "I was terrified of losing everything if he died. So, I made sure I wouldn't. I manipulated the man I loved because I was a coward." I said nothing. What could I say? "I've hated myself every day since," she continued. "Losing everything wasn't punishment enough. Working for you, seeing your strength, it showed me what I destroyed. I'm so sorry, Eleanor. I'm so sorry." I turned toward the window, unable to look at her. "Leave," I whispered. She left without another word. I went home from the hospital conflicted. Tara's confession should have brought relief. Validation that I'd been right all along. Instead, it just felt heavy. She'd admitted to destroying my life, manipulating my dying son, stealing everything I'd built. And yet, part of me understood her fear. Not excused it, but understood it. I didn't see Tara for a week. She came to work but avoided me, doing her job with quiet efficiency. Then one day, I called her into my office. She entered nervously, eyes red-rimmed. "I've thought about what you told me," I said. "What you did was unforgivable. You manipulated Michael when he was vulnerable. You stole from me. You tried to erase me." She nodded, tears falling. "But," I continued, "you've also worked harder in these months than most people work in years. You've earned respect here through effort, not manipulation. That matters." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you've proven you can change. So I'm promoting you to production supervisor. You'll earn a real wage and actual responsibility. But Tara, if you ever lie to me or anyone here again, you're done. Understood?" She stared at me, disbelieving. "I understand. Thank you." Over the next year, Tara transformed. She took her new role seriously, managing schedules and quality control with dedication. She apologized to people she'd wronged, paid back what debts she could, and rebuilt her reputation one honest action at a time. It wasn't redemption, not fully. Some wounds don't heal completely. But it was change, real and visible. Sunrise Organics continued thriving. We expanded to 3 states, hired 20 employees, and won several business awards. I finally moved into a small house, nothing fancy, but mine. The insurance money from Michael's policy, which Tara had never touched, helped. She'd kept it separate, perhaps the one honest thing she'd done. One afternoon, Tara approached me hesitantly. "Eleanor, I wanted you to know I'm moving out of state next month. My sister offered me a place to restart." "Are you running away?" I asked. She shook her head. "No. I'm giving you space. You've been more generous than I deserved, but I know my presence here hurts you. It's time I stood on my own." I nodded slowly. "Where will you go?" "Colorado. A fresh start." "Good luck, Tara." "Thank you. For everything." We didn't hug. We didn't need to. The annual town fair arrived warm and bright. Sunrise Organics had been nominated for Business of the Year, and to my shock, we won. Standing on that small stage, holding a plaque that recognized years of hard work, I felt overwhelmed. The crowd clapped. Local reporters snapped photos. Beatrice and my team cheered from the front row. I saw familiar faces, Patty beaming with pride, Dorothy nodding approval, even Howard Banks smiling. From the back. In my speech, I kept it simple. This award isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who believed that honest work and second chances matter. To my team who showed up every day. To the customers who supported us. And to my late son Michael, who taught me that love means building something lasting. Later, a reporter asked about Tara. I simply said, everyone deserves a chance to learn and grow. I hope she finds peace. Because that was the truth. I never needed revenge. I just needed her to understand what I already knew: nothing built on greed, manipulation, or stolen foundations ever lasts. But what you build with your own hands, your own sweat, your own honest effort, that's forever. That's legacy. That's sunrise after the longest night.